Ashley Connelly is a visionary behind Lionbear Ventures. In this conversation, we explore the profound moments that shaped her journey from grant writing to rural economic development, as she reflects on pivotal instances where her passion for community building led to tangible transformations, overcoming hurdles in male-dominated industries. With sincerity and wisdom, she shares invaluable lessons learned, offering heartfelt advice to young women navigating their own paths, echoing the resilience and determination that define her entrepreneurial spirit.
Thank you so much, Ashley Connelly, for joining me here on AwareNow to share your story and to share this space. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
So, with your extensive experience in startup and small business strategy, what key lessons have you learned throughout your entrepreneurial journey that you believe are essential for aspiring business owners, especially those venturing into rural or underserved markets?
So for me, I think of advice that people have given me along the way, and through conversations kind of afterwards, right? Like, you've went through this experience, you kind of do a retrospect with people you trust. And one of my mentors, he was like, I knew you had this, because what entrepreneurship means, it means you just figure it out, right? Like, you never know what's coming next. You never know, and just the breadth of the things you have to do, like owning a restaurant, like food, alcohol, lottery, accounting, customer service, like it's just broad. You can't come into it thinking you're going to be excellent at everything, but having the ability to just figure it out, get through it, and be able to put out the fires that come your way. Because if you don't figure it out, you can't let your business stop because of it. So you just have to be just versatile. And then the other mentor of mine I think about a lot is whenever you're feeling like you're failing or you're feeling like you can't do this, you got to think of it like as if you're an athlete and you're in the overtime. And you just got to hang in there, and you just got to keep scoring. You just got to keep scoring. And the game's only over when you quit. So you just got to keep playing through it. So I always felt like that. And I always wondered if I had the capacity to do that as an individual, because I tend to get distracted and go over here. But it was an encouraging experience to actually live through it and understand that, okay, this is my business, and I can keep playing it over time, and I'm not going to walk away, and I'm not going to give up.
I love it. It's a beautiful analogy, both with the overtime metaphor, but then also with the firefighting, because a lot of people don't equip you for that. They don't know. You don't know when you become an entrepreneur that you're going to need a fire helmet, because there's going to be fires. So building effective teams, that's something that is absolutely crucial to building any business. Could you share some insights into your approach to team building and management, particularly in dynamic and diverse settings, such as Rivals, which I was at last night, which was lovely and amazing? I mean, how do you foster a culture of collaboration and innovation in your teams?
So for me, like with a restaurant, like I cannot run a restaurant on my own, nor do I even honestly desire to even try to accomplish that. So I need a team. I need a team, or I'm not going to survive. So I think everyone has their own management style, their own leadership style, but I consider myself a leader. And so my approach is to surround myself with people who I can inspire to follow me, right? They see the vision, they trust me, and I don't have to show up every day and make sure they're doing their job. Like, I give them the box that they have to operate in, and they know what the destination is. And we talk, and I mentor them. And so the first thing I did with Rivals was create my management team. And these are young individuals they've never been managers, they've never been leaders, they didn't know they were a leader, but I could see the qualities in them. And so my approach was to identify those that I felt like had the desire, the capacity, and I mentored them, and we talked, and I trained them in the things that they needed to do. They learned accounting, they learned all kinds of things that I don't know, maybe a lot of other leaders would have offered them the opportunity given their age or their experience. But I just wanted to be a leader that it's more about providing people opportunities to develop and grow, and then, ensuring that they can deliver along the way, right? They have to be accountable for the results.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Just, giving people an opportunity to, and just seeing those qualities in them. And as an entrepreneur, like taking that chance, which
Yes.
guts, but guts you've got. Let's talk about Lionbear Ventures. As the founder of Lionbear Ventures, you've been deeply involved in rural economic development and community building initiatives. Can you discuss a specific instance, and I know there are many, where you witnessed tangible, positive transformation within a rural community due to your efforts?
I came from a rural community, and one of the reasons that I decided to take what I know how to do and bring it to rural communities is because I could see that they've been looked over for a long time, right? Like, to me, it's a lot about access and equity. And if you're a village of 500 people, like, why would anybody pay attention to you, right? Like, how are your problems important to anyone outside of those 500 individuals? So for me, I deliberately chose to go into these villages who are volunteer run. They are not, these aren't project managers. These aren't government trained officials. These are people who are your neighbors, who are plumbers, who, maybe was a teacher at some point. And I went in and so to me, it was about the people, really. Yes, like, this will result in sidewalks, this will result in buildings. But to me, it's really about developing the people and the capacity of that village to deliver their own results over time. So I think, to me, the most rewarding part is you walk into these communities, and rural people tend to be realists, right? Like, we're never going to win a grant. We've never won a grant before, ever. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, maybe we got a bridge here or there, but that was 40 years ago. There's no way. And so over time, you can see their minds start to believe in themselves, start to see that maybe my community is worthy and it's worth going after. And I think the fear of trying and failing is what holds back a lot of them. So for me to be able to see the change in them and then deliver results to communities in particular, I've won over $500,000 for infrastructure and buildings, and just the gratitude and believing in themselves, and then them thinking, okay, what's next, right? This is just the beginning. I want to have a desirable, beautiful community just like the next person, right? Just because we're, in the middle of rural nowhere, we can still have nice things too.
Let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Being a female entrepreneur, you've experienced your share of hurdles. What has been the biggest obstacle in a very male-dominated market and world, for that matter, where you're trying to make your mark? What's been that biggest hurdle?
Yeah. So I started my career, I don't know, almost 20 years ago now. So the world was a much different place. And I worked for Lockheed Martin. And although I didn't believe it at the time, they were actually quite ahead when they were thinking about DEI and equity. But I was still surrounded by males all the time. Manufacturing, even, 20 or even 15 years later, working in manufacturing organizations still, like, male dominated. I work in rural communities, most of the governments and people of power, all male. So I think the hardest thing for me is, they still have a large amount of control, right? And so there are still boys clubs that exist. I'm doing my darndest to, dismantle and disrupt, but that's not always easy, or something that maybe is a good use of my time. I don't get paid to do that. That's maybe just a hobby of mine. I have no idea. But yeah, it's just the statistics where, most of the capital in the world is still controlled by white males. And when I have clients who are designing, shoe purses, for example, or a on-demand manufacturing or jewelry manufacturing platform, and all of the investors who they're talking to cannot relate because they don't make custom jewelry. They don't see why a purse that carries your very expensive high heel shoes would maybe be a marketable item. Like, I empathize, right? So how how do we fix those things other than, again, the representation, where how can capital be managed by people who may be representative of different diverse groups? That's the thing that kind of still keeps me awake at night, is how does at least that model get disrupted, because that could have major change.
I love that you say maybe dismantling these kinds of things is a hobby of yours, or maybe it's a calling, I dare say. But
well, then when someone can pay me to start doing that, then I can make a job of it. But right now it's just a shiny distraction where I'm like, no, stay focused.
So your life, you've traveled on so many different roads, from a life in Italy to establishing yourself in Detroit, Michigan, very different places. And now, again, living a life in rural Midwest. What is the common thread? We're going to get a little personal. What is the common thread in all of these places that makes you feel home?
I met my husband when I was 19 years old. So for me, home has always been him. And now that we have 2 kids, and we just both have this natural curiosity about us. So like we thrive in like change and adventure. And so that's what's made it home everywhere we go, is you're with your person and you're in a place where you can discover and adventure and try new things. So that's how, so for me, it's the people you surround yourself with. That's home, right? That's your consistency, the surroundings. Yeah, maybe still have your favorite pillow and your favorite blanket, and that goes with you everywhere or whatever. But it's really, it's the people you come home to.
Mm-hmm. People you come home to make it home. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Let's close on this note. To all the young ladies out there, to young women coming up in this world, you've got a daughter of your own. What advice would you give to them that you would have given, you wish you could have given to your younger self? What advice?
Yeah. That one's hard for me because I feel like advice is so personal. Like the advice I should have taken for myself was, I don't know if this is everybody or just me, but I had I was gifted with confidence. So I tended to go into things thinking I had it all figured out because I'm smart and I don't need to listen to anyone's advice. Well, I wish I would have listened to more advice younger. But I don't know if that's everyone or women in, young females in particular. But, I think just being patient, change will come. Like, I know that's hard as a young person where you're just like, you want to just make an impact early. You don't realize like how quickly years can go by, and like you look back and you're like, well, that's changed in 10 years. And so I just think being patient, but also like they need to keep the fire in their belly and they need to disrupt things that aren't right. And, you kind of depend on young people to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your story, a bit of your time, for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you so much for rocking it like you do.
Thank you, Allie.